Hey, welcome, John. How are you?
I'm good. How are you? I'm so glad to be here, Sammy.
Me as well. Thank you for joining. I'd like to get started to ask the guests to give a little bit about themselves, get a little bit of an introduction. I know you run a couple of companies, and I
hmm
wanted to this episode to focus a little bit about entrepreneurship and running multiple things. We have in this podcast focus on, different categories of success, but it helps to have multiple different life experiences from our guests. That's definitely why I wanted to bring you on.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me. I appreciate that. It's an honor to be here. And yeah, so as you mentioned, I have a couple different companies. Well, three. So I have one company, Cowork.inc is the name of that company, where we're a co-working space company, but that's really not. I mean, that's just kind of that's part of what we do, but really we're an entrepreneur support organization. So I've got a podcast, part of that called Thrive School, and a newsletter as well. And that's a big part of what I do with that space is we have currently one co-working space, but we're in the process of opening additional spaces, which will act as entrepreneur centers to get people connected to our training, all about building a thriving business. So that's my main focus. But then I also co-founded a software company called Notable. So we build we have a website, a content creation platform for content creators. So
Mm.
podcasters like yourself, people who have a podcast or a YouTube channel or a blog or all three. We built a content creation system called Notable Press, which really allows you to publish all of that in a way that not only looks professional and beautiful and is engaging to consume, but also is designed to help you grow your audience and monetize that. So I actually use Notable Press on my own website, johnmeese.com, which is the third company of mine, which is called Meeseworks LLC, which nobody calls it Meeseworks, right? Nobody knows it's called that, but johnmeese.com is Meeseworks, where I've got a
Yeah.
website where I have a blog, I've had a couple different podcasts over the years. And that's where I have some affiliate income, some courses, and some consulting that I've done. I've done a lot of digital marketing consulting through that company. And then now that's the holding company for my new book, Survive and Thrive: How to Build a
Yeah.
Profitable Business in Any Economy, including this one. So that's a little bit about me, I suppose.
Yeah, that's really cool. I like the underlying thread of you're trying to increase awareness, educate
hmm
people, and definitely in the spaces that you like in entrepreneurship and marketing. And that's really what we'll get into a little bit. But the book is what I'm most curious about, how to thrive, especially in this market. It's coming out soon, right?
Yeah. So, well, I think as we're talking right now, it actually just came out. So the book,
Nice.
paperback bookstore release, July 27th. And that's the main focus right now is this book. But it's been a long time coming, Sammy. I have to tell you this, that I wrote the first draft of the book actually during the lockdown. So if you remember April 2020, March and April 2020, that's when I wrote the first draft of this book. And it really came out of, I was just watching the world kind of fall apart, shut down, and just thinking about all of the pain that was coming from that. Because yes, there was a real health crisis, people dying from COVID-19, people being scared
Mhm.
to leave their homes or scared to spend time with other people, and that's its own tragedy. Uh, and there's a lot of tragedy that goes along with that. But what I was really focused on was saying, look, there's lots of people trying to focus on solving the health problem. There's not enough people focused on the economic problem. And the economic problem, by that, I don't mean the federal government writing checks for endless amounts of money to try to keep
Right.
things going. I mean the fact that over 100,000 businesses permanently closed last year in 2020. And each of those businesses represents years of, late nights, long weekends, sacrifice and risk to try to build a business that would make the world a better place and fuel their life. And over 100,000 businesses permanently closed last year, just in the US. I mean, all over the world, it's much worse. And then on top of that, you had over 30 million Americans, which were suddenly promoted to entrepreneur, right? Who lost their job in some way or another. Um, but so I wanted to create the how-to guide for everybody who's part of that movement, who's either part of a business, they're a business owner or an entrepreneur who's really wants to build a rock solid foundation for their business that can thrive in any economy, or a brand new entrepreneur who's saying, look, I'm tired of this getting a job where I can just get laid off and don't have that freedom and control that I really want and crave, which is where the book comes in, is to say, look, well, here's how you do it. Here's how you build a profitable business in any economy, including this one. So that's why I wrote the draft then, but then spent the rest of the year interviewing some of my mentors to really flesh out that book. I did a lot of research into economic trends that have been going on behind the scenes and sort of what's changing in the economy and what's long term that's going to mean. And that's the book, Survive and Thrive: How to Build a Profitable Business in an Economy. So now it's a real thing.
That's awesome, man. I'm sure it's a really good feeling. Have that book come out. I'll definitely be getting a copy and reading it as well, because I think from your perspective, you've ran multiple companies. You ran a software company, like you said, a
Hmm.
platform kind of creation. It's a different business model with the same
Hmm.
vision of, finding a solution and creating a real solution to a real problem for real people. You mentioned that multiple
Yes.
times in the book. I want you to expand a little bit about what that means. And real is kind of a subjective thing, right? Everybody feels like their problem is the number one thing in the world. But what do you
Sure.
mean by creating a real solution to a real problem to real people?
Yeah. So, well, okay, I will say the word real came because I felt like it was really important to emphasize really just something that I think a lot of businesses have got wrong. Because it's easy to say, like, you need a target customer or you need an
Mhm.
avatar or any of these kind of things. But I want to be clear: you need real people, not followers, not subscribers, real human beings on the other side of this business. That's what makes business work. So, an example of a company that got this wrong was Juicero. Do you remember Juicero by any chance? Do you have your,
No,
they
I
were
actually don't.
this was back in 2017, where they were a venture-backed company. They made they raised like $134 million for this machine they have called the Juicero machine. It was basically this machine you'd put on your counter in your kitchen that would allow you to make these green, basically just like juice in the morning, like a smoothie, like a healthy juice. And they're like, it's going to be
Okay.
the future. Everyone's going to be drinking juice. Seems like a cool idea. We're Juicero. Let's raise a bunch of money. Let's launch it. The machine costs $700.
Oh my God.
$700 for this machine. It's pretty expensive. $700 for this machine, this juice press that you would put on your counter in your kitchen. It would connect to Wi-Fi. It had all kinds of bells and whistles, and that would allow you to make juice. But the way you actually use the machine was that you had to actually buy their juice pouches. I mean, I think they call it
Mm,
protein packs, but you had to buy from them these protein packs, which was basically just like a squeeze pouch filled with fruits and vegetables, which you would put that inside the $700 machine, and the $700 machine would squeeze that out into a cup. But if you did not have the $700 machine, you could just buy the juice pack, the protein pack by itself, and use your hands to squeeze it out into a cup with water. So the thing was, they focused so much on the technology, they forgot that they weren't really solving a real problem, right?
yeah.
Now, maybe their squeeze pouches could have solved the problem if that was their business, but their business was built on this $700 machine that squeezed a pouch into a cup. No one needed that. That's
Yeah.
where business goes wrong. And unfortunately, it happens a lot with venture backed companies, but it happens with bootstrapped entrepreneurs too. I guess you just don't hear it because it doesn't get very far. But a lot of these bootstrap companies, I mean, these venture backed companies will raise millions of dollars and create something that no one needs. But that's not what business is about. Business is about creating a real solution to a real problem for real people. So that's why I added the word real in there, Sammy, because I just felt like it was so important to emphasize the fact that these have to be actual human beings who have an actual problem that you're solving.
Yeah.
And so that's what I mean. I mean, any business you can think of that's done well, that's what they've done is they've identified little frictions or real serious problems in people's lives that they're able to solve and to serve through a product.
Yeah. And that definitely makes sense. I mean, your goal is to help people make their lives better in
Hmm.
any of the five categories, and anything that you're doing
Yes.
in business is to make the consumer's life better. And is that kind of the underlying theme of when you say the word thrive? Like there is,
Hmm.
making it, there is surviving an economy, but there's thriving is the word that you specifically chose in their book title and you
Yes.
cover in the book. Tell me a little bit about what it means for a company to thrive. And is there objective measures? Is it quantitative? What does that mean?
Well, I will say this, Sammy, I want to ask you real quick. If I were to describe a plant, and I'll tell you nothing about this plant other than the fact that it's thriving. What do you see? Can you describe what you see when I say that?
Be growing and be like has leaves, sometimes a fruit, if it's a
Yeah,
tree.
yeah, right. So it's a really just a vivid. image. And if you think about it more, I'll describe a couple more things that I'd guarantee you see this when you think thrive. You just don't, you just take it for granted, right? There's a lot of green going on. There's a lot of healthy life going on, right?
Hmm.
This is, by the way, this is not a thriving plant in the middle of the desert by itself. It's surrounded by other thriving plants because, like just
Yeah.
healthy, thriving things, just they create this environment where everything thrives.
Hmm.
And that's what I mean when I say build a thriving business. And I've really built my whole business on this word now. I mean, my podcast is called Thrive School. The book's called
Yeah.
Survive and Thrive. I'm really leaning into this. I've got a Thrive score assessment you can take for your business. Oh, so that's one thing you mentioned quantitative. That's one thing you can do is you can actually go to yourthrivescore.com and
Okay.
you could take a quantitative assessment of your business that's going to give you a numerical score based on the principles that I teach in terms of how well your business is set up to thrive. So yes, that's one quantitative thing. But outside of that, I mean, just the whole idea is that something that's thriving, it bears fruit. It makes the world a better place. It's surrounded by other things that are healthy. Of course, that's not actually what the assessment tests you on. The assessment tests you on more like sales and marketing and financial strategy.
Hmm.
Um, but the idea here is that we want something that really fuels your life rather than the other way around. Because so many entrepreneurs really, their business is something that their life fuels the business, right? It's almost like
Hmm.
you're giving away a piece of your soul or your lifeblood or just to keep this business afloat. And we want to turn that around and say, no, 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 no. Business is designed to serve you and fuel your life, but it's also designed to make the world a better place, a healthier place, right? And now
Hmm.
those are the businesses that succeed, are the ones that really focus on that, on serving other people, real people, and getting a reward along the way. Profit, like money, financial profit, I view my profit as a scorecard for how well I've served humanity. And
Right.
so that's the focus is then, okay, well, is that profit number maybe not as big as you want it to be? Well, let's go out and figure out how we can serve humanity, serve human people, and get rewarded with a higher scorecard.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way to put it. People talk about servant leadership, and you're trying to help the people who you're helping instead of thinking it all about me. So I like that approach a lot. And it's a good segue into one of my favorite questions I ask every guest is the five categories: money, happiness, career/purpose, relationships, and health. And they're all, I think, very important to have overall
Mhm.
success. And everybody has a different kind of importance ranking on it. And I'm curious to see what your perspective is because, like you said, if you're working in something that you're passionate about, as most bootstrap entrepreneurs are, but you're giving your life towards it, maybe that's not overall successful life. So,
Sure.
what is your five categories of importance?
Yeah, well, I think that's a great question. And it's fair to say that all five are really intertwined, right? I mean, you can't really have any one of these without some combination of the others.
Correct.
So, with that in mind, I would say that I would actually say happiness is number one. But the reason why I would say that is that I believe, in my experience, you can't actually achieve happiness unless you've got the other four already worked out, right?
Hmm.
So, like, if you've got happiness, right? If you've got a full life where you feel like your life is thriving, amen, wonderful. That's a great thing. But how does that happen? Well, I would say the next one most important would be health because so much of our energy, our livelihood, our day-to-day experience is based on this one organism which we live out of this
Hmm.
body, this health. And so if you don't have that, then nothing else really matters. And so your health is number two. And then number three, I would say is relationships. It's tempting to put these as more important, but the reality is if you're not taking care of your own personal health, then you can develop a really unhealthy imbalance by focusing on your relationships and serving other people without taking care of your own resources
Hmm.
first. Um, but relationships are incredibly important, so I'd put them as number three. And then number four, I would put career or purpose. Um, and then number five, I would put money. Money is a means to an end, right? It's
Right.
not actually, it doesn't have any inherent value. Now, if you have money, maybe that's going to make it easier for you to focus on your health, your relationships, your career. Like you may need some amount of money just to do those other things or just to achieve happiness. But money by itself is not a goal to me. It's a means to an end, right? Now, what is
Right.
that end? What is that, and that's actually, I guess not just to me, just technically, right? So my background is traditional economics, and it's like, well, yeah, money is it's just an easy way for us to transfer value, to
Hmm.
say, here's something that I can give to you that's worth something we can both agree on. I do like Rabbi Daniel Lapin, who's one of the mentors who I interviewed for the book, but also endorsed my book, thankfully. But he also, I love this. He refers to money as certificates of appreciation with presidents' faces on them. And so it's like, that's it. So yeah, it's nice to get those things, but I would still put that at the bottom of the list as number 5.
Yeah, I think it's best used to exchange things that you need to make your life work, right? Or make you pay the
Yes.
bills, make sure you release the stress that you don't have to worry about other things impacting you. But it should be a goal that you guys have to make sure that you build a comfortable foundation so you can excel in the others. And
Yes.
um, the entrepreneur's paradox that you mentioned in the book is similar to that, right? You want to serve people, but you don't want to feel
Mhm.
like you're taking advantage of them by taking money from them or exchanging
Mhm.
that. So how do you kind of flip the switch and know, okay, I like to help people? We talked about
Mm.
servant leadership. We talked about how the scorecard is based on how much you're helping people or helping your consumers. But then again, you also have to be profitable in order to continue to succeed and to continue
Of
to
course.
be in business. So how does that kind of work, especially for somebody who's bootstrapping and trying to get things together on their own that maybe doesn't have a VC or an angel investor helping pump in some money?
Yeah. Well, regardless of whether you're bootstrapped or a VC, the same thing is true about entrepreneurship, which is this paradox that I refer to, which is that entrepreneurship is simultaneously all about money and not about money at all. Right? Which sounds like a contradiction, but it's actually a paradox, really. Because the reality is that cash flow is your lifeblood in business. I
Mhm.
mean, and profit is your scorecard for how well you serve humanity. You need those things. It's also how you feel your life. You need those things. But how you get those in the long term is through serving people. The path to profits is through serving people. Now, have there been business leaders and entrepreneurs in the present or past or future who have manipulated people and taken advantage of people to make money? Yes, of course there have. That's true with everything. Um, but the reality is that doesn't last. It's not long term. I mean, it's just it never lasts long, and it's also not we're going to give you happiness. So that's why entrepreneurship is simultaneously all about money and not about money at all. Now, I think it's really important to be smart about this, though, right? When you're serving people. So one of the things that I teach in the book, which actually I got this from Ray Edwards, and he has a framework called OPEN, the Open Buyer Awareness Formula, OPEN, and it's really just a way to gauge how much someone wants to solve a problem in their life. Because if I go, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, my goal is to solve problems. All right, I'm going to start a weight loss business, right? And I've got this really great, a juice pouch that's
Mhm.
going to help people, lose weight. Okay, well, we won't get confused this with the Juicero example, but let's just say that, we've got this really great meal replacement that's going to help people lose weight and it's going to make their life better. Okay, I'm going to go run and find some people who need that. You know who people who need that the most? The people in the McDonald's drive-through. They need that, right?
Right.
But here's the problem. They don't want it.
Yeah.
They want a McFlurry. They want a super biggie fry. I don't even know what they're called. I don't, sorry. But the reality is that um, you have to build a business, you have to solve problems where people are engaged and actively seeking a solution to that problem. So Ray calls this the open buyer awareness formula. O is oblivious, right? If someone is oblivious to the problem in their life, that doesn't mean it's not a problem, right? There may be someone who is just a week away from a heart attack who's eating McDonald's drive-through for the third time today, and they have a real problem which you can help them solve, but they're oblivious to it. They don't know, and therefore you can't help them until one day after eating the third Big Mac of the day or the fifth, they start to feel a little pain in their chest and maybe a little bit of acid in the back of their throat, and they think, oh, you know what, I should probably eat better. And then they go into pondering. That's the P, the pondering stage where they're thinking about solving the problem. By the way, there's lots of pondering people who follow you on Facebook or Instagram who like your content, but they're not engaged, which is the E, in actively seeking a solution to their problem, right? There's plenty of people, even you and I right now, say, I mean, we're pondering the solution to some problems in our life, right?
Of
But we've
course.
got
Yeah.
other more important things to do, more urgent things to do. And so there comes a point though, whatever it is, whatever the impetus could be. It could be that a family friend had a heart attack. It could be that they went to a doctor's appointment. The doctor was like, you know what? Your blood does not look good. You need to take care of your health right now, or I might not see you back here in a year. And you're like, whoa, okay, I'm engaged in actively seeking a solution,
Mhm.
right? I'm going to go out there right now, and this is my priority is solving this. People who are engaged in actively seeking a solution to their problem are the best customers because they cut straight to the chase. They say, I need to solve, this is my problem. And you say, here's my solution. And then they say, great, I want it. And you have a transaction and you make their life better. They actually use the product and
Right.
they become better. So you need to focus on that. You don't need to market to people who are in that last category, which is N, so OPEN, oblivious, pondering, engaged, and then need. People who desperately have a need for the solution to their problem, don't market to them, but they will find you. So in that example, it could be that someone actually had a small heart attack and survived it. And
Right.
then they were told, yeah, well, you were lucky. Okay, well, now they're desperate.
Hmm.
They're desperate and need a solution to the problem. Don't market to those people because your sales page or copy is all going to read really desperate. There's companies that do this. You'll read it and you go, I don't know why, but I really don't trust them because everything's like life or death. Like, buy
Yeah.
my thing or die. Download my this thing. Like those options that'll pop up on someone's website that says,
Hmm.
download my free ebook or click no, I hate money. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, no, that's not that. You're marketing to people in that need, that desperate category. They will find you, but you need to focus on the people who are in the engaged category.
Okay. So where do you find that and how to kind of categorize it? Is that where you use social media? Is that where you use this kind of content creation in different forms? Tell us a little bit about how you either convert people who are from pondering
Mhm.
into engaged or market to them, if you will.
Oh, for sure. That's great. Well, I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do it. I mean, you could do it the best way is actually just talking to people. If you get clear on who your real people are and just talk to them about their problems, you can usually pick up pretty quickly whether this is a real problem or is it like, you know what? Yeah, I might buy that thing. That's pondering language, right? You know what I mean? You got to look for that. Um, so I would say that, you got to think about it that everybody in the world, when it comes to your business, everybody has one of three relationships with your business. They're either a prospect, a lead, or a customer.
Hmm.
Now, a prospect is everybody, right? I mean, Oprah or Joe Biden, like these are prospects for your company, but they may or may not be great prospects, right?
Right.
You know, depending upon what you're selling. So you need to get clear real quick on, okay, who's the target prospects? You can narrow that down some on your own. You can just say, okay, the product that I'm creating, I think that who's going to be interested in this? Well, I think that I can think of some real people I know who are engaged in actively seeking a solution to this problem. And they're men between the ages of 35 and 45 who work in high pressure jobs where they have to commute at least 40 minutes to and from the office or something like that, right? You could
Hmm.
give this category. But then what you have to do is to kind of test the waters is to get those prospects to go from prospect to lead is you have to give them their first opportunity to say yes.
Okay.
Now, this is the free sample, right? This is the lead magnet. This is the whatever you want to call it. But the goal here is to get them to say yes once. So you give them an offer. Now, the offer could be something as simple as saying, like, hey, I created a free guide that's just got 5 tips on how to, well, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is even possible, but hey, I've got a 5-minute workout you could do in your car during rush hour on the way to and from the office that's going to help you lose 5 pounds a month. Are you
Hmm.
interested? Well, if they're engaged and actively seeking a solution, yes. So then they give you their email address for that, or they follow you on Facebook or LinkedIn, whatever
The
whatever the
CTAs.
call to action, the CTA is. The focus then is just saying you're trying to get them to say yes. Now, if they don't answer, that's a no, but it might just be a not now. I mean, it might
Hmm.
just be that they're in the pondering stage and circle back in a couple months. Maybe they're ready to be engaged. So that's the first litmus test to see if they'll do that. And then the second test is to see if you've got the right audience following you. Is once they've said yes to that first time, give them additional opportunities to say yes. Now that's where content fits in. By the way, this is great content, meaning like a blog or a podcast or a YouTube channel or something like that. That can be a phenomenal way to get in front of people who are prospects and convert them to leads. But it can actually even be more effective in converting leads to customers by educating them, right? So someone becomes a lead and then you're sending them a follow-up sequence of a blog post or a video or a podcast about that topic, and you're gaining their trust. They're growing to trust you more and more as you go. And then at a certain point, you give them this opportunity of the next big yes, which is the first one with a dollar sign attached to it. And again, we want to be strategic and incremental here. So we want to create a painless purchase process. We want to offer them a gateway product, right?
Hmm.
Don't jump straight to the big kahuna, the flagship product. Start with a gateway product. What's the $5 or $10 or $20 version of what you offer,
Hmm.
right? And so then you offer that to those people who said yes to the first free offer. I say free, but they had to do something, right? follow
Mhm.
you, give you an email address. They had to pay some price. It just may not have
Right.
been money. But then you start with that gateway product. And then again, you see how many people take that gateway product. And then you can move incrementally towards offering your flagship product, which is this is typically the way I teach it. This is the full experience of transformation in your brand or your company is the flagship product. In
Right.
between, you've got a continuity product, like a subscription that holds everything together. And you may have other add-ons, right? You may have other complementary and supplementary products, but the three most important products to have in your company are that flagship product, the gateway product, and the continuity product. Because if you have just those three, you have a complete customer experience. Um,
Yeah.
yeah,
I really like that continuity thing, the subscription model, tying things together. It's a good way to think about it. At least, obviously, for me, when I have the podcast and stuff that hopefully I encourage people to follow and join
yeah.
the journey of learning, then you can go into the stages from there. But that's a good way to think about it, at least for me. Um, so is that where you kind of start with your social media presence? I know you had mentioned that you don't really use it personally anymore, and
Yeah.
I'm curious to see. Obviously, this podcast is us millennials have kind of grown through social media when it was in its
Yeah.
infancy to now, and it's kind of a little bit shaky in our relationship with it. So you've made the decision to cut out personal social media and only use it for your business. How has that turned out for you?
Well, it's done really well for me, but I could say it's done well for me even business results wise, but personally was the first thing was just, I mean, I could make the case, but I don't have to make the case that social media is not great for your psychological or mental health. I think we all
Mm.
kind of intuitively know that. We just don't want to admit it. Um, but yeah, a couple years ago, well, several years ago, I quit Facebook. That was the first and easiest one to quit. Um, but then I read a couple years ago, I read Cal Newport's book, Digital Minimalism, and he really challenged me in that book to take a 30-day hiatus from all social media. And so that's where I just reset the passwords in all of my account, but I didn't save it. So I didn't know what my password was. Yes, could I have gone and manually reset my password to log in? Sure. But it just made it just inconvenient enough that I stayed out of those platforms for a month and then 2 months and then 3 months. And during that time, I felt so free. Now,
Mhm.
there's plenty of other ways to grow your business, by the way. Social media, I talk about this in my book. We have a visibility bias with social media, which is that right now, Sammy, if you want to grow your business just like someone else, right? Like you see someone else who has a business you admire and you think, man, they're doing some really cool stuff. And you're starting your business and you want to grow your business, then it's natural for you to look over and see, okay, well, Joe Schmo over there, his business is doing really well. I wonder what he's doing right. And you start looking at his website, you start looking at his social media, you maybe even join his email list, maybe you buy one of his products.
Mhm.
And the only thing you can really see is how many likes, comments, and shares he gets on social media. You
Correct.
don't know how many people subscribe to his email list. You don't know how much money he's spending on Google Ads. You don't know how much traffic he gets from search engine results. There are all these other growth strategies. You don't know if he has an outbound sales team that's making phone calls and closing sales. You only know one thing: how active people are on a social media profile. And so it creates this visibility bias where everyone goes, well, they're successful and therefore, and also they are really big on social media. So I guess I need to focus on social media. But
Mhm.
it's sort of like that's just the tip of the iceberg. And there's so many other growth opportunities that are really unseen. Um, and so I think social media has its purposes and its uses, and it's not all bad. But there's this visibility bias where social media gets too much credit. And so with that in mind, after several months being off social media, I went ahead and deleted every single profile. And during that time, I doubled down on business growth with my software company. I launched a co-working space. We also had our third child, my wife and I. So the family
Congrats.
life is my kids. Thank you. My kids have my focus. And I wrote this book. I wrote this book when I had zero social media. I mean, like, because I've been talking about writing a book for a long time, but there's always something else to
Mhm.
do, right? But I deleted all my social media accounts and then we all went into lockdown and I was like, well, I guess now's the time to write the book. And so I did. Now I've since then gotten back on LinkedIn. But here's the thing. What Cal Newport recommends is what I recommend too, which is take a break and then just make sure you have a strategy for why you're using each platform. If you really like connecting to friends on Facebook or Instagram, awesome, great, do that. But maybe put some constraints on it. Maybe like put a timer on your phone to make sure you don't get sucked into it, um, or only use it on your desktop computer. I mean, there's lots of things you could do to control your own workflow. But for
Right.
me, I knew that I wanted to spend more time connecting with people in real life in my own community where I live in Columbia, Tennessee. And social media wasn't serving me there. I could just text them and meet up for lunch.
Yeah.
And then professionally, I did coming up to this book launch, I wanted to share the book with more people who would find it useful. And so I did launch a LinkedIn profile with a specific strategy for growing my audience and for promoting this book and the related products. But that's why that exists. So I recreated a LinkedIn profile from scratch. Yes, I had lost all my followers from before when I created my account. That's okay. I
Mhm.
could do it again. Um, you could actually go to meese.link if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn. You're welcome to.
For sure.
Um, but you don't have to, you know? But it's one of the ways that I'm available to connect.
Yeah, and I will definitely have obviously the link to the book and the different websites as well as your LinkedIn and the show notes for sure. And I wanted to ask one more question, obviously, before we kind of wrap up and see some opinions from
Sure.
your end. But if you were to start a content or marketing business today, what two or three kind of building block level foundational pieces do you need to develop? Is it the marketing strategy? Is it the flagship product? Is it the gateway product? Like, is it something else we haven't discussed? Kind of what is
Mhm.
the first two to three things you need to get started from day one?
Specifically with the content marketing business or
Correct.
yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, the first thing you have to get clear is on your purpose statement, right? And that's
Mm.
actually something I teach in the book, which is I help real people solve real problem with real solution, right? So we already talked about this earlier, the idea that you need those three, but you do have to get clear on those first, even before you start creating content, because you could end up getting viral for the wrong reasons and attracting the wrong people. When I started blogging, my three most trafficked articles did nothing for my business. One was called Four Reasons Why You Should Never Tell That Little White Lie. And I was just mad one day at somebody and I wrote that article. But then it turns out who finds that article in Google and comments on it? Mad people. So I get lots of comments of like, yeah, I think my boyfriend's cheating on me and he lied to me. And I'm like, I don't need this. This is a business blog, you know. Another one I wrote was called "Why I'm Glad I Got an F in College," or "Thank God I Got an F in College." And then I ranked for years. If you search, "I failed a class in college. What do I do?" Or, "I got an F in college. What do I do?" And then my blog post ranked highly, but it was really disappointing for the people because for the people who arrived there,
Mhm.
because they were looking for some sort of solution or even empathy. But mine was about how I'm an A+ student, but then my entire life, but then during my final semester of college, the girl of my dreams, my longtime like best friend, and I
Mhm.
finally started dating. We're now married and have 3 kids. And I
Nice.
had a choice: double down on calculus 3 and finish the class and have no social life, or invest in this relationship with someone who turned out eventually to become my wife and the mother of my children. So I was saying, thank God I got an F in college because I had a choice and I chose to let go of my perfect record
Yeah.
and walk away from this class and get an F in that class, which is a cool story, but it was not helpful to anybody who
Yeah,
found it
of
through
course.
Google. And my third most popular blog post was called How to Activate Air Gestures on the Samsung Galaxy S4. So
Oh
super
wow.
niche, lots of views, people needed it, but they never came back. So I share that just to say you have to get clear from the beginning on who you're actually trying to serve and how you're trying to help them. So that's the first thing, right? The second thing is you need a platform that you can control, because the reality is Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, all these platforms, they have their uses. They're sort of like the coffee shop or the community centers or the parks of today, and that they allow you to go meet new people and connect with them. But you have to bring them home. If
Mhm.
you don't bring them off of those social media platforms onto a website or onto an email list that you control, then you're just building your business on someone else's property. At any point, they can just double the rent or kick you out, and you're kind of just at a loss. So
Yeah.
that's the focus of one of my companies, Notable.press, is really building that content creation platform that you own and your control. So it's a really essentially it's a custom WordPress theme designed for content creators that allows you to build a website where you call the shots. And so you can still use those social media platforms, but then you can actually bring people back to a website where you can grow your email list or your text list, something that you control, so that you have direct access to your fans, to your prospects, to your leads, and to your customers. And so you're not beholden to whatever the next Facebook board meeting decides about how many people they're going to ban or anything like that.
Mhm. Nice. Nice, nice. So, where can people kind of find you to connect more? I know we talked about LinkedIn, we talked about all the different
Yeah.
websites, but is there any other areas that you'd like to have people connect with you?
Well, the best of the best is if you go to surviveandthrivebook.com,
Mhm.
because that's where you can actually, so if you pre-order a copy of this book, Survive and Thrive, or actually, I'm sorry, not pre-order. Now it's out as we're
Yeah,
talking. So if you order a copy of Survive and Thrive, you're going to actually get the ebook and the audiobook for free. And
nice.
you heard it here first. I sell an online course called Built to Thrive, which is about, a companion course for the book. But actually, if you go to that website, you can get it for free. So if you go to surviveandthrivebook.com, you order the book, you order the paperback, you get the ebook, the audiobook, and the course, the video course for free. So if you do that, you get the best of the best of my material, I mean, stuff that I work, that I've spent years building. But it also allows you to kind of get a peek into my world and join my email list, so I can give you more resources, mostly free in terms of a podcast, newsletter, and all that good stuff. So I hope it's a good deal. I mean, the book costs less than $20. And if you're starting a new business or you have an existing business, if you put just one of these principles into place, then you should be able to 10x your investment in a day. So it's a
Yeah.
pretty good deal. Books are one of those crazy good deals like that way. So I know there's so many books that have had that kind of impact on me. I'm hoping this can have that same impact on you.
For sure. I really appreciate that. I'm a huge fan of books. I love reading them as well. And I like to, and I see your bookcase in the back. For those of you in audio, you can't
Yes.
see it, but I like to obviously end every episode with my guests to ask them what kind of books, or well, maybe it was a podcast, maybe it was a YouTube channel, something that kind of inspired you to start your journey. And we talked about
Hmm.
the digital minimalism book. I'll obviously have that in the show notes, but any other books that you like recommend to our audience to just try to get better and in any of the five
Yeah.
categories?
Yeah, well, we mentioned Survive and Thrive, right? I do recommend
Mhm.
that book.
Of
I think
course.
my publisher requires me to recommend that, but I'm just kidding. It's a great book. I mean, that's, by the way, third party reviewed. It's a great book. I can say that, but Michael Hyatt, Ray Edwards, Pat Flynn, Robert Dino Lappin, Mike McAllowitz, many other people have said so as well. But outside of that, I would say Greg McKeown has been the author that's had the greatest impact on my life. First, his book Essentialism, and then
Mm,
more recently his book Effortless, have really just become a way of life for me. So I'm an essentialist, which is not about doing less for the sake of doing less, but about doing less for the sake of doing better. And so
mm.
doing less but better in everything I do. So um, yeah, I would highly recommend picking up some of Greg McKeown's work. Actually, the original title of my book, by the way, was going to be called Essentialist Marketing. I own
Mm,
essentialistmarketing.com, and that was going to be the first title of this book. But then when the lockdown hit, remember, I'd already kind of started
mhm.
outlining the book before that. But all of a sudden, the focus of the book became really clear to me, just in a moment, that this is about how do you as a business owner both survive as an entrepreneur? How do you
Mhm.
survive just shifting economy, shifting world, shifting priorities, and then how do you thrive? It's both of those things.
Yeah. I'll be getting a copy soon and definitely
Good.
give you my thoughts as well. Hopefully, we continue this conversation. I had a great blast here, John. Thank you so much for joining,
Thank you.
man.
It's my pleasure. Thanks for having me, Sammy.